Halloween
Forever.
Good evening, Steven. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. How's you doing?
No, I'm hanging in there. Hey, got one for you. So I went in to the library, you know, as one does, going in the library where you get books.
Mm-hmm.
I said to the librarian, I asked her if she had a book about Pavlov's dog and Schrodinger's cat. You know, 'cause I'm a big pet guy.
Mm-hmm.
She said it rang a bell, but she wasn't sure if it was there or not.
Oh boy, that's pretty good.
Welcome, boils and ghouls, to a very booky Minisode of
Booky.
Halloween is
Booky.
forever. Booky. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve with your bleeding list.
I was trying to think of the word scholastic, but couldn't, so I said
Skelastic.
Skeleton elastic. Anyway, yeah, that was a joke about books, but also about psychology and quantum mechanics. Yeah. So don't let anyone tell you we are exclusively lowbrow here on this motherfucking podcast, you guys. We have a fun little mini-sode here. A little different. We got an extra Monday in this beautiful month of June. So one more episode before our July Showdown episode. So we thought, hey, use an opportunity to do something fun. We haven't done one of these little list topics in a while. So we're going to talk about some of our favorite genre books. But guys, we got to do a whole bunch of shit before we get into all that mess. Including pick our Showdown movies for July, talk about what's going on with the Patreon, all that type of stuff. Before we do any of that shit, Steven, I see you taking a big old quaff of something over there. It looked dark. It looked thick. What are you sipping on?
I don't know if thick is the right word, but I'm on the bells and whistles train of having a beer that has all of the bells and whistles.
Sure.
This is from Omagong Brewery.
Omagong.
Where they're out of Cooperstown, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah, they're up there by the Baseball Hall of Fame. We were just talking about Dave Parker before the show started recording. But this is from Brewery Omagong. It's their Three Philosophers.
Oh, yes.
But I'm not satisfied with just the Three Philosophers. I need to
gotta
go
add a
bigger.
couple 2 Tree Morse philosophers in there.
I need all kinds of other goofy shit in there. You know me, Brian. I need the goofy shit.
Yeah,
So-
you gotta goof it up. Take a good beer, goof it up.
So it is their quadruple ale version of this, meaning it is 9.7%, and it is a blend of the quadruple ale and their Kriek ale. And if that wasn't enough, it's on nitro in the can.
Oh, that doesn't sound that bad. That sounds kind of fun. So it's a big old, Belgian candy sugar caramelized, toffee and dark fruit and all that stuff. Plus it has a blend with their cherry lambic.
Yeah.
And it's on nitro. So it's a big old fluffy. Is it sour? Is it got some sourness to it? Or is it more just like some of that dark fruit melding with the cherries from the creek?
No, it's far more just kind of dark fruit and toffee. I would say I picked it up. I picked this one up specifically because I'm a huge fan of the Brewery Omagong Rosetta, which is their just kind of standard.
Yes.
And I love that beer. That's probably like third on my list behind Spotted Cow, Red Belgian, and the who's the one from? It's from Castile Rouge.
Oh yeah.
So those are like my top 3 all time like cherry beers. I love them. And then Niche Schoof is also in there as well. But
sure.
Yeah, so I thought this was going to be a lot more along those lines of a Rosetta blended with the Three Philosophers. You don't get a whole lot of the Rosetta on there, so it's not quite as tart or sour. or cherry flavored, but you do get like a lot of dark fruit flavors in there. And it's pretty soft. I think they do have another version that isn't nitro, and it's the same beer in bottles. Yeah. I'm wondering if like the fruit notes are brighter on it when it's carbonated rather than nitrogenated.
Yeah, a little spritziness, a little effervescence probably lends to the impression of like tartness, and it's not quite as round and fluffy and sweet. That sounds tasty. I love me some Brewery Ommegang. I don't think they make a bad beer. I am doing something very, very different than that, although it seems to have some Belgian characteristics to it. But I am drinking a beer called Akari from 4 Points, and they just call it a summer ale, 4.5% summer ale. And I didn't look up a lot about what it is, but the fact that it has a Japanese sounding name makes me think that it has some sort of Japanese ingredient in it. Maybe it's rice or something like that. But I'll tell you what it reminds me of. I know I've drank it on the show. I don't know if you've had it, but 11th Hour does that Balsch beer.
I haven't had it, but yeah, I know of it.
And it's essentially like a cross between like a Kolsch and a wit beer. It's essentially like a Kolsch fermented with wit beer yeast is really what it feels like. So it's light, it's spritzy, it's effervescent. It's got a little bit of that wit beer character, like expressive Belgian yeast. Doesn't really have that, intense coriander, curacao orange peel character. So it's not quite as perfumey. A little bit firmer bitterness because it's got, I think, some hopping character similar to a Kolsch. A little, I don't think it has wheat, or if it does, has very low percentage. This is what it tastes like to me. It honestly tastes like a cross between a Kolsch and a wit beer, except for this one definitely has more American hop character to it. Not over the top, but you're definitely getting more American hop character, whereas the Balsch beer is like more like continental hop character from what I remember, although I haven't had it in probably a year or two.
Sure.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more. It's very bubble gummy. Well, not even like classic bubble gum, more like juicy fruit type of thing. Okay. Little citrusy.
Zebra fruit stripe.
Little zebra fruit stripe, perhaps. But yeah, it's nice, refreshing, characterful, spritzy beer. So I'm digging on it.
Interesting. Yeah. I was at JR's, and you mentioned how Brewery Ommegang, you don't think they brew a bad one. And I'm not sure about that, because there was one I was on the fence about getting until I saw the one I did get. And it is it was an oak aged watermelon Kolsch.
Oh boy.
And I was like,
so they're going wacky. They're going batshit. Yeah.
I was like, that could be either fucking great or, and I still might pick it up if it's there next time I go, but
yeah. Some of these breweries, I mean, I've seen my beloved Allagash do some weird shit in recent years. It's craft beers. It's becoming a very competitive, it's already a very competitive environment. So, those breweries are trying to branch out and do different stuff, pull new people into their fold. And sometimes they're, stepping away from what makes them great, and trying to be everything to everyone. And that is typically not a good sign, but can't judge before you try the beer, I guess.
It's also part of their OMG series, so they're like leaning into.
They just hired like 4 27-year-olds marketing people.
Yeah.
So they're not like actually young and cool. They're like between the ages of 27 and 32, but they think that they know what's young and cool. And they're just like bastardizing this, historic brewery.
And they just figured out what Canva is.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're on there just making shit with like plants, a lot of pictures of plants and things like that.
Yeah.
Birds, photos of birds, artistic, tasteful photos of birds. Anyway, guys, we got a couple other things we got to do. I mentioned last week, 2 weeks ago, actually, we talked about what our July Showdown topic is going to be, which is, of course, cute but creepy. That's what Ian's voted for. And then last week, we announced we're going to have our old pal Louie from the Haunted Hangover podcast coming on back to be a guest on our show once again, which I'm very excited about. But this is the week where we choose our movies for cute but creepy. Let me remind you, here's how this fucking thing goes. Every Monday, we put out some sticky, salty, sweet, unctuous, lovely content on the internet every fucking Monday. But first Monday every month, we do what's called a Showdown episode. A Showdown episode is where we pull three big old topics on our big old spinny ass, big old wheel. We pull those, we put them on the social medias, and then yins vote on it. It could be a subgenre of horror, could be a particular performer, it could be a trope, whatever. In this instance, it's cute but creepy. So we're talking about creepy elements or characters or villains but are otherwise creepy in genre film. And then we put them on our social medias. Y'all vote for which one you want. Once we have one, we all pick a movie associated with that topic, and then someone is going to get a big old atomic leg drop with the chair on the chest. Someone's going to get a fucking Goldberg spear picked up, just fucking jackknifed, and then eventually one person is going to remain standing. They're going to take home that son of a bitchin' championship strap for the month, and then they are the champ for that month, and then they get to hand down a punishment episode, a punishment movie for us to watch. They get all types of good stuff because, of course, to the victor go the spoils. So we are now going to select our movies for July because our guest is obviously not here. We allow them to pick early, and then they essentially get first pick. So Louis from the Haunted Hangover podcast, he is going to have the first pick for cute but creepy. I don't know what that is. Steve, you do know what that is, so why don't you tell us?
Yeah, so I would say that this is a good pick by Louis because it wasn't really on my radar. And it's a good pick because it's also a movie that I don't think we would do otherwise. Because it's such a big movie and it's such a good movie. But this topic is so specific that Louis is only taking kind of one scene out of this movie.
Okay.
But I think it's a good representation. Louis has chosen the book Jurassic Park. I mean, the movie Jurassic Park. Hey, see, because we're talking books. I said book.
Yeah, because it also is one of them.
But yeah, Louis has taken Jurassic Park, but he specifically is focusing on the Dilophosaurus.
Not what I thought you were going to say.
Which one did you think I was?
I thought you were going to talk about when he's hatching the little velociraptors out of the eggs.
Yeah. There's also that. There's that little scene too. But yeah, he went with the Dilophosaurus, and if you specifically think of the scene with Nedry in it,
sure,
like, they first present that dinosaur as like a dog. They present it as a dog, and they don't present it as a threat. Right. And then you learn it is a threat. So I think it fits the theme, but he did kind of just limit himself to that one scene. Maybe we can let him talk about the Velociraptor baby as well, being that they're you see the adult ones later and how fucking awful they are.
Yeah. I like that pick a lot. One, because that scene with the Dilophosaurus specifically freaked me the fuck out as a kid. Like not even freaked me out and like scared, like I couldn't sleep. I just remember that being a very high tension, high anxiety scene. Yeah. You know, as a kid watching it and loving that scene. And just, I was such a fucking huge Jurassic Park fan as a kid. I mean, I had all the toys, all that shit. I love that one. Yeah, all right. That's fun. And Jurassic Park, that's a horror movie. I don't care what you say. That's a
monster movie. Yeah, it's a monster movie. It's the one thing that like Steven Spielberg, all of his best films are upscaled versions of genre work that he saw growing up as a kid, through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Like Indiana Jones is upscaled adventure serials. Jaws and Jurassic Park are upscaled fucking monster movies. Like,
I like that. I haven't seen that movie in a few years too, so I'm excited to rewatch it.
It still works because so much of the practical, so many of the dinosaurs are practical, and so many of like the animation is so bespoke to the film that it's still because I've seen it probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago again, and I was like, the movie still fucking kicks.
Okay, so remind us who won last month. Who was the champ for June?
You were the champ for June, Brad.
Oh yes, that's right. I am the champ. I is the champ. So that means I get to pick who goes next, and I pick Steven because I have, before we got on the old mics here, we were chit-chatting as we do, and I was like, fuck, I have like 5 or 6 movies ranging from quality movies to some of my personal favorites to absolutely stupid nonsense that would just be fun to watch. So depending on how serious Stevens is, this is the reality here. None of mine are going to compete with Jurassic Park, but I'm going to have to make an argument and lean really heavily into my character being more featured, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I'm going against Louis. You know that's how it's going to happen. Anybody who's a fan of the show knows that I'm going to go after Stone Cold's brace on his knee with the sledgehammer.
It's a target. How does he not know to not wear a target to the ring?
Yeah, right. But I'm going to decide which direction to go based on which direction you go, Steven. So what is your pick for cute but creepy?
Yeah, so I was kind of in the same boat. And my original pick was going to be Night of the Lepus.
Okay, I like that. That's fun.
Because there's nothing more cute than just actual bunnies.
Straight up bunnies.
But the movie's fucking bad. So
it is a genuinely bad movie. I will admit I have one movie on my list that is genuinely bad.
Yeah. So it's
not Night of the Leap is bad, but
so it's about finding that balance of like we should, when we judge, we should be weighting towards, how much of the creature is cute but creepy. But also I do think the overall value of the film. That's the other reason why I'm okay with featuring Jurassic Park on this, because of course 9 out of 10 times Jurassic Park wins everything.
Right.
But do 2 scenes out of Jurassic Park win everything?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Maybe not. Mm-hmm. We'll see. With that in mind, though, my pick is the 2006 film Black Sheep.
Oh, okay. I looked at this one. I have not seen it, though. But I know what it's about. And I know it's a little bit of like a folk horror-y type of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. This came up as I was doing my research, but I did not pick it because I had not seen it.
Yeah. I've seen it before. I've really enjoyed the film when it first came out. I watched a little bit of it going back this time. And yeah, it's a little dated and everything, but what really hits is the fact that they're just using real sheep through most of the film. Like there are some sheep puppets, but they have some really great shots of just using real sheep that are very funny and very effective. I think, in my research, like a lot of people were suggesting Black Phillip from The Witch.
Sure.
And I was like, he's not really cute. He's just a big black goat. But you know what is cute? Just literal dumb sheep. Like just with their dumb faces.
Fluffy, floppy-eared, dumbass sheep.
Yeah. Like they still have the scary fucking square eyes and shit like that. Mm-hmm. But they also just have dopey faces and they're like they're big silly dogs of a type. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Okay. All right. So I think that answers my question for me, but I will tell you a couple other ones that I was thinking of. This one I wasn't really considering strongly because I didn't get a chance to watch it beforehand, but have you watched Bong Joon-ho's that Mickey 17?
I did.
Have you seen that yet?
Yeah.
I saw some screenshots and there are some creatures that are very cute and but they're ugly, bad creatures, but they are kind of cute. So I was thinking about that, but I did get a chance to watch it first.
I would also just caution against that just because that's not really a horror movie at all.
Oh, okay. Haven't watched it yet.
It's very sci-fi. I even read the book. Like I think I talked about it on this show, but after watching that movie, I was curious about like the changes from the book because the movie was very like styled in a anti-colonialization and like anti-Trump format.
I see.
Which, like, the movie's fine, and the movie actually still is better than the book. But I was just wondering how much he's changed. And, like, in the book, those creatures aren't very cute at all. Like, they still, they have, like, an intelligence about them. And the one creature that gets focused on is kind of like, in the movie, is like a baby. And the creatures themselves wind up essentially being like stand-ins for the buffalo. But what if the buffalo were also intelligent? So, like, I don't think it's a bad pick for the overall essence of, like, a creature that is cute but creepy, but it's not a good movie because the movie is like a sci-fi comedy.
Gotcha. Okay.
But still a good movie.
Yeah. I haven't watched it yet. I'm sure I would have came to that determination, but that was that was on my short list that meant to watch and didn't get a chance. The top of my list, which I demanded to myself, it needed to be a top of my list, even though I was not going to pick it because we've already done it before, is of course Uninvited. And I would like to do Uninvited again, but it is against the rules because there's nothing cuter than a kitty cat coming out of the mouth of another kitty cat. So I was looking for other kitty cat horror. I was thinking about doing the Uncanny from 1977, but I hadn't watched it in a very, very long time. Rewatched it. It's not good. Not even in fun, not even in like a fun, good, stupid good type of way. So
sure.
The other one I was really thinking about and actually was strongly considering, but I think my argument would have been that I think it's cute, but I think other people would argue that it's not cute, was I was going to do also one of my favorite movies, period, from one of my favorite directors, which is the great Frank Henenlotter. I wanted to do Brain Damage.
Oh.
Because Almer is cute, in my opinion. He's silly. He has a fun, very distinguished voice. He's a little distinguished gentleman. Obviously, he's horrible. But I think if somebody said, no, he looks like a blue turd, brain turd, it'd be hard to argue with that. I personally think the puppet is cute, but I steered away from it because I think it could be argued that he is not objectively cute.
Right, yeah. I had a same moment with, I was thinking about Bad Milo.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Like,
now, Bad Milo at least has cute, like, he has big eyes.
Right, yeah.
So, like, if something has big eyes, you have to say he is, even if you don't find it cute. It's like, spiders. Some people think spiders are cute because they have a million eyes, but if you look at it, like, without looking too close, it just looks like a couple of big eyes instead of a bunch of little ones.
But like the thing with Bad Milo is like, they purposely styled him like a Pixar Disney character, but also he has like gross, sticky skin and, nasty teeth. So like it's that kind of like disconnect. Like he's like a garbage pail kid, really. So
yeah, he is. I'm going to go with one because I appreciate you went a little silly, although Black Sheep, I don't think is silly necessarily.
Oh, it's silly. It's silly.
Is it really silly? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going very silly, and this might be just, taking a dive here, but that's all right. I think it's going to be worth it. I'm going to talk about 1977 movie that you could know by a couple of names. Could be called Zoltan, Hound of Dracula, or Dracula's Dog. So are you familiar with this movie, Steven?
I've heard of it. I've not seen it. So
it is a fucking treat, and you're going to really appreciate it. You're going to really enjoy it. Even if I don't win, we are all going to have an absolute blast watching Dracula's Dog.
Dan in the chat is already just pissed off, and I don't know if you've seen this movie or not, but I can tell Dan is just pissed because it is another fucking dog movie from Brian, and he's
love a dog movie. What's cuter than a dog? I'm a big dog guy. I like kitty cats. I like aminals of all types.
Sure.
But I own 2 dogs. I love a dog. Love a dog. We was at a brewery last night. There was a dog there. Couldn't leave it alone. Love a dog. Nothing cuter than a dog. So when you think horror movie and dogs, Dracula's Dog.
Of course, Dan's big concern is, does Eric Roberts do the voice of Dracula's Dog? No, he doesn't. So
not.
We're a little safer than that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And this is, I will say also, this is not a puppy. This is a full-blown dog. This is not a mystical puppy, a magical puppy, or a Halloween puppy. Well, you could argue it is a Halloween puppy. It's a damn Dracula dog. But it is very literally a vampire dog. It is so fun. All right. So we have three very different movies here. We've got Louis talking about the perennial classic from 1993, Jurassic Park. We've got Steven talking about 2006's Black Sheep. And then you've got me talking about 1977's Zoltan, Hound of Hell. I'm sorry, Hound of Dracula, aka Dracula's dog. So that's going to be a lot of fun for the big old month of July. So go watch those movies as we suggest all the time. You got to watch them back to back to back. Weigh in on them so you know all the talking points when we discuss them during our goddamn barn burner, our son of a bitch and slobber knocker next week. Before we jump into our topic du jour, Steven, do you want to, we just recorded our next episode of the Patreon exclusive podcast series. Why don't you tell them boils and ghouls over there what's going on over on that Patreon?
Yeah, so if you're listening to this on a Monday, as you should, then also coming out sometime later today is our episode 4 of 90s is Forever, which is Police Academy Mission to Moscow.
It's so fucking bad. It is not. It is a movie that it's like they made a comedy, they wrote a comedy, forgot to make it funny, like just left it out.
Somebody did a pass through, and instead of punching up the jokes, they took the jokes out. It's
like, here's what I'll equate it to. It's like if you're familiar with the show Chopped on the Food Network and you get the secret ingredients that you have to utilize. It's like someone was on Chopped, and instead of making a dish, instead of making food, you had to make a movie. And one of the obviously key ingredients is laughs. Right in the basket, ingredients, laughs, and at the very last minute they were rushing. They got all sidetracked. Forgot to put the laughs on the plate.
Forgot to put the laughs in.
They just aren't there.
Didn't use the laughs.
They just aren't there. So they lost. They missed. They're automatically eliminated essentially from making movies ever again. And that's essentially what happened to them.
That's what happened. Most of the crew. Well, I won't say most of the crew. All of the writers were eliminated from working again. The director sort of worked again.
Kinda.
And the
not
cast,
in movies, not making feature films, certainly not comedies.
And the cast barely worked again. So it was a whole, depending, except for one person. One person actually got fucking huge after this movie.
Yeah, got really, really, really big. Really paid off good for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Mission to Moscow just really paid off for one person. But got to tune into the episode to find out who that was. Yeah. The other things you can get with your $5 on top of 90s is Forever, you get all our past shows of Family is Forever and what was it? Christ is Forever? Youth Group is Forever.
No, Youth Group is Forever. Christ is Forever. Listen, guys, Christ is decidedly not forever. If there's one thing I know about Christ, he died. Now, you may argue he is forever in a different entity. I am more of a Satan guy. I choose not to believe that.
But you get all those episodes. You get on the Discord. And I was telling you about Mickey 17, and you were giving me a blank look. And I was like, I was sure I talked about it on this show.
You probably did.
No, I didn't. No. What I did was I did a big write-up on it and our Patreon about it. So I talked about it with our audience, and I did do a lot of talking about it, but I didn't talk about it with you. So
I do not subscribe to the Patreon. Famously, I do not subscribe. I refuse to subscribe. I will not subscribe to my own Patreon. So I do not get all those extra bonuses.
Yeah, but you can get on there and also read my write-up of Mickey 17 and all the things I had to say about it and all the criticisms. But yeah, that's why Brian was unsure of what I was talking about, because I was convinced I talked to him about it. Nope, I wrote about it for everybody else.
I just shook my head, just standing here shaking my head. Oh, I have a horrible memory. So when somebody says something, like, oh, do you remember that? I go, maybe. You're probably right. I just assume I forgot.
Yeah. You can't gaslight Brian because he gaslights himself.
Yeah, I just assume I forgot. Yeah, you're probably right. I probably smoked that out of my brain. Anyway, yeah, go over to patreon.com/Halloween's Forever and give us your money. And we'll give you all kind of other fun stuff in return. You could also be here with us live. Watching us record and see our beautiful faces and see all of our my Pee Wee Herman paraphernalia and things in the background of our Discord. So if you want to do that, that's always a lot of fun.
And here's a good segue. All of our patrons, I reached out to them this week and I asked them to tell us about their favorite books. And so we're going to bring up some of the favorite books and suggestions that got tuned into us. I had 2 come in that actually kind of reminded me, or at least led me into my own picks.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so we're going to talk about our favorite horror and just spooky genre books, right? Books and stories and things like that. This is one of those ones where sometimes when we have an extra Monday in the month, we like to do this. Maybe we do a list or something like that on occasion. Always a lot of fun. And I thought to myself, well, this can be pretty easy. I read a lot of horror books. Boy, howdy, it was not. I found myself agonizing because we decided we were going to do 5 each, but then I have about 10 honorable mentions on top of that too. So,
okay. Can I help you cut this down a little bit, maybe? Because sure. I don't know if you remember this, but we did do a whole Stephen King episode. Mm-hmm. So maybe don't do the Stephen King ones if you have a bunch of Stephen Kings on there.
I only have one Stephen King one, and it was one that I hadn't read before that and had recently read. So
damn. Okay. Never mind. Then.
But I shall be brief. I shall be brief. But we are going to go back and forth, and we'll talk about some of ours, and we'll probably have some overlaps here. I venture to say there might be some overlaps that we end up talking about, but
could be. At the very least, you might overlap with the patron as well.
Yep. Exactly. All right. What do you want to do? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? What are you thinking?
Yeah. Why don't you go first?
Okay. You know what I'll do? I'll grab the Stephen King one right out of the way, because we talked quite a bit about what I generally think to be like probably my 3 favorite Stephen King books are The Shining, and I genuinely think of The Shining as my number 1. Mm-hmm. Close second or tie with that would be The Stand. Although I don't think of The Stand as pure horror. It certainly is horror, but it's almost more like dark fantasy, which I have a couple on here because I do enjoy a flavor of dark fantasy. And then Salem's Lot, which I believe we talked about quite a bit on that Stephen King episode. But one I put off for a long time reading because I'm such a big fan of The Shining was Dr. Sleep. I never read Dr. Sleep, and I just read it here in the last maybe 2 months or so. I think I even mentioned in the podcast when I was reading it, and the idea of a continuation to that story that follows Danny did not sound appealing to me. I'll just say, the Torrance family, I felt like that story was closed. I don't know. I just thought that story wrapped up so beautifully that I didn't think there was more to it. And the fact that, I'd heard it becomes a bigger, much broader story, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than this isolationist, like modern Gothic tale that is The Shining, just didn't appeal to me. But I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna read it. Holy shit. I loved that book. Loved that book. It is much bigger and broader, spanning like huge geography, not unlike The Stand, really, in that way. Not as a bajillion characters like The Stand, but I loved it. I loved the character of Danny. I loved like his the whole like AA angle and the people that he meets through there that also have like an understanding of the phenomenon that is The Shining. And honestly, the thing that made me fall in love with it the most were the villains. And I won't spoil it or anything. Many of you have probably seen the oh gosh, what's his name?
Ewan McGregor, and then
Ewan McGregor, but the director is what I can't think. Michael Flanagan.
Yeah, Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan, who did the which is an unbelievable adaptation, probably the best Stephen King adaptation that I can think of. They do a really good job of it in the movie as well. But the True Knot, which are the kind of like psychic vampire villains, but the fact that they like hide in plain sight as like RV people in the book is a little different. They're a little less glamorous. Not that they're glamorous in the movie necessarily, but they're a little bit more mystical. And I think in the book, they're more worried about being like incognito, and hiding in plain sight. And that is just a really cool angle to me. So absolutely love that book. And it is now at I don't want to say it's necessarily my favorite Stephen King book, but it's at the top of my list with a handful of others.
Right on. Yeah. Maybe one day I'll get around to reading it. It's been a while since I've actually read King. So maybe that's one of the ones I get back into it with, or maybe I find one that I have no fucking connection to.
There's just so many. Like I've read, spoiler alert, I have a Peter Straub story on here, not a Peter Straub Stephen King story, but I read The Talisman a couple of years ago, which is again also more dark fantasy really than horror. And then I just started reading his other book with Peter Straub, which is Black House. Why can't I remember which one it is? I just started reading that. I'm like maybe 20 pages into it. And there's just so much. I mean, he's just so prolific. There's so much to fucking like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and just the number of film adaptations out there as well. So I wanted to jump to one of our patrons then, because you brought it up. But our patron Mike Cook, his suggestion was The Stand. But he had a very specific story to when he read The Stand. He says he was reading it as a freshman at the University of Colorado.
Oh, that's cool.
And he was doing a summer internship at a local hospital, and they had gotten hit with like an influx of like summer flu. So he was reading The Stand as a bunch of people were getting sick in Colorado, and said he said it like truly fucked him up a bit from like the two conversion things at the same time.
Yeah. I reread The Stand not that long ago. I feel like I talked about it on the podcast because it had been, 15, 20 years since I read it.
Right.
And obviously we're in a post-COVID world now. And that was a very different vibe than when I read it when I was in like a junior in high school or whatever.
Yeah. So I also wanted to bring up The Stand again because it was just announced that they're making another like adaptation of it.
They're trying again.
Yeah, they're trying again. Like we just got done with like another TV show, which I didn't see and I don't think you saw. But they announced that Doug Liman is doing a movie adaptation, which sounds bad.
I just can't imagine how this can be anything but a miniseries or a serialized series, right? Like, how do you make this like an 1,100 page book or whatever it is into even a 3.5 hour movie? There's just so much happens in that book.
Yeah, it's too much. I don't see it.
It's almost like for different reasons. They talk about, which is I almost made my list, but it's not really true horror, although it is quite horrific, is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. They talk about that as being the unfilmable book. Like, I feel like The Stand is almost in that realm. It's just like, it's almost unfilmable. It's too fucking long. There's too many characters. Happens over too much time. Too much time passes.
Yeah. Like they talk about Well, I mean, every time we've seen it adapted, and it is also of a similar size of 1,000+ pages.
Yeah.
And like multiple times, like it is both been a TV series and a 2-part movie. And like, I think both movies were 2 hours long, probably.
Oh, so yeah. Like 2.5 plus even, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, it's insane to think that they can just cut all of that down to one movie when I don't think the most recent adaptation worked. I don't know many people who'd seen it, and I hadn't heard any buzz about it. And I don't even know that it finished. Like, I don't know if they did it as a miniseries or if they started doing it as a series and then just canceled it. So I don't even know that much about it, but I was just curious. And then for those who don't know, Doug Liman is the guy who just did that recent adaptation of Roadhouse.
He does what I refer to as cool guy movies. Yeah. Like he always says everybody's got to be a cool guy in his movies.
Yeah. All of his movies are like cool guy movies because he did the most, recent Roadhouse adaptation, but he did Edge of Tomorrow, which that movie's cool.
Yeah.
And Mr. and Mrs. Smith is fine. And Go from 1999 is fine. And Swingers from 1996. They're all good movies. But none of that is The Stand.
It's very sexy, cool guy movies. And I just don't understand how that translates to The Stand. Obviously he does action, I guess, but The Stand is like, there's super memorable action scenes, but it's 0.1% of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he does cool guy, snappy dialogue too. Like he's good at that. But that, again, I don't know. I don't see how any of that's going to translate into end of the world fucking. Yeah, I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see the vision, Brian.
I don't see it, dog. But who knows?
All right. So for mine, I'll just tie into yours because one of my picks is actually very similar to yours. But I not too long ago I read the book Carrion Comfort by Dan Simmons. And
this one has been on my to read list for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you would really enjoy it. It is, it's psychic vampires. That's what it is.
I love it.
And it also spans a few time periods, but mostly it starts in a Polish concentration camp. Mm-hmm. And we're introduced to this character, Saul Lasky. And during his time in the camp, he runs into this like mind control vampire. And of course, that vampire is, one of the lead officers of the SS.
Sure.
And he gets led off into like this scenario in which like they're just playing human chess with people because, the vampire can control people's minds. And so they just control them as chess pieces and then make them kill each other. And like, that's the setup to, the horrors of these monsters is that they're psychic vampires and they just make people do the absolute worst things that you can think of.
Yeah.
Then we fast forward and, I believe it goes into the 70s. See this. Yeah. It goes into literal 1980. So we're on the cusp. We're on the cusp of that. But we get this expanded world that it wasn't just that one Nazi officer. There's a whole bunch of these psychic vampires, and they've infested different parts of American society. Yeah. And so like some of them have become Hollywood producers, and some of them are like in the FBI, and they all have like these little controls over society. Sure. And and then just you get a ragtag group of people trying to investigate. So it's like a small town sheriff and Saul Lasky and this one woman whose father was made to commit suicide by one of these psychic vampires, and they all wind up investigating, these psychic vampires trying to stop them. But for the most part, they seem pretty unstoppable throughout the entirety of the book because just if you get close to them, they just make you kill yourself. So
that's tough. Yeah, that's tough. Psychic vampires are tough like that.
Yeah. The film is, or I keep wanting to say film. but the book is really brutal. There's one particularly brutal scene in which like one of the psychic vampires is on the run from almost getting caught, and she takes control of this woman who was like in a car accident, and it was like all banged up and shot up, and like her fucking foot is falling off at the bone, but she makes this woman like crawl up to a car and drive her away in the car.
Yeah.
It just like her body is mangled in such a way like she can't even die, and she's not being allowed to die because this vampire has taken over her mind.
Like, no, you're my getaway driver still.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's like gruesome. So, yeah, a really great book. I haven't read a whole lot of Dan Simmons since that though. Most of what I understand is he does a lot of sci-fi. Like I think his Hyperion series is like his most well-known series.
Yeah, that's when I see associated with his name most often. Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's more sci-fi than horror, but this is a really good horror book. So yeah. Check that out.
I like it. Do we want to talk about one on the Patreons list, or do we want to pepper those in? How do you want to do it?
We can pepper in another patron right now.
Okay.
Just because this one's pretty quick and simple, but this one comes from Kelly from the Final Girls podcast. And she said Stephen King would be too easy. I think almost every patron mentions Stephen King at some point, but
yeah, I mean, we're talking about like the most highest selling, best known modern author, not just horror author, but just American author probably.
Right. But yeah, Kelly said that her favorite book was The Runes by Scott Smith. And she said it was like the only book that she ever read in one sitting. So
that's a great one. It's a great one. That's also been one. It's been quite a while for me.
I haven't read it, but I did see the movie like years and years after it came out. Yeah. Something about when the movie came out, it just like did not interest me. It looked, I don't know, too similar to a lot of other stuff that was being made at the time.
Sure.
But then I watched it later and I was like, oh, this movie's like pretty underseen because nobody really talks about it.
I don't think I've seen the movie.
It's pretty brutal and like it's good. Like I actually enjoyed it. I think it. I don't think it gets the recognition that it should.
Yeah, that's one that book too. I don't think gets the recognition that you think of, but like when you look at the kind of maybe one layer of the onion peeled back in terms of like scariest, best horror books ever written, scariest books ever written, you will still see people mention that. Like that one really sticks with a lot of folks. All right, I'm gonna pick my last one that is like more. I mentioned this already, but I am a huge fan of. I like dark fantasy type of stuff, not necessarily modern dark fantasy, but I think some of the stuff that I like is like the origins of modern dark fantasy. I love Ray Bradbury. Huge fan of Ray Bradbury. I think he's the greatest American, short story writer. Like between him and Richard Matheson, you could probably play the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with every genre thing ever created and somehow connect it to either Ray Bradbury or Richard Matheson. Anything that's been created in the last 50 years, you can probably tie to 70 years, really. You can either tie to either Richard Matheson or Ray Bradbury.
I would just add Isaac Asimov to that list as well.
Probably. Yeah. You
But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of shared between him and Bradbury as well. So
yeah, and obviously a little less sci-fi, a little bit more like, I mean, Bradbury is the first one I think. Well, and Matheson too started to take like kind of modernize horror but not sci-fi. Whereas Asimov was speculative fiction, whereas Bradbury and Matheson were like bringing horror stories out of the Gothic age, which, back like M.R. James, turn of the century ghost stories to the modern, boomer, suburban environment. Right. So a lot of this like really like if you go back and read Matheson and Bradbury for the first time, you'll see a lot of ideas that you're like, oh, this feels like I've seen this before. And it's because they invented it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the idea of like almost nostalgia in genre, and the idea of like kind of mysticizing and romanticizing, suburban, growing up as a kid type of environment. Like the stuff that you think of when you talk about like Stephen King and Steven Spielberg and stuff like that, movies, it comes from Ray Bradbury and Richard Matheson. And I'll talk about these two actually side by side because they have a lot of the same themes. But Ray Bradbury's short story, like I could talk about like the Martian Chronicles or October Country or anything. I try to steer clear because I do read a lot of like short form, like weird fiction and horror fiction. But probably my favorite is Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is really more dark fantasy than horror. But this vibe that I love in everything that I read that has this kind of dreamlike feel to it, where you don't know what's real, what isn't real, amazing amount of world building, and then just has like a Halloween nerd. You can't beat it for like the kind of autumnal vibes, right?
Yeah.
But I would, even though it's not like pure horror, the villains in this book are among the most like threatening that I can think of. I remember like, I'm fast forward a little bit. If you've not read this book, I mean, it is, from 1962 or something like that. So I don't know if it's fair to say spoiler alert, but I remember the first time that like you started to read about the members of the carnival coming out into the town and basically searching for the main characters was like, oh my God, they can reach their fingers into the town. You know what I mean? Because you think of them as like kind of being stuck within the confines of the carnival. And also, I mean, I'm a sucker for creepy carnivals and creepy clowns and all those sorts of things. Not that there's clowns here, but creepy carnivals in general. And this is like the fucking origin story of creepy carnivals, right?
Yeah.
Is Something Wicked This Way Comes. So there's a couple of scenes that just, couple of sections from this book that really stick with me. The witch in the hot air balloon and stuff. It's just so creepy and dreamlike. And I remember reading this for the first time when I was probably 12. And that is the exact perfect time to read this book and like dreaming about that scene for months. So that's one that's always stuck with me. And I reread it not that long ago and it's still amazing. So that's my Bradbury pick.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. Bradbury's another one I used to read a lot. I'm going to probably say this 100 times if I don't, but I used to read so much when I was younger. And I read a shitload of Bradbury and I read a shitload of King and I read a shitload of Mark Twain. Yeah. And then I don't know, something in my head, maybe I got hit in the head too hard one time or something. Yeah. Reading got really hard for me. Yeah. At some point. And I know it's, popular to say nowadays. I think I went undiagnosed with ADHD. Sure. Because just reading started making me sleepy all the time, unless it was very specifically formatted with a very specific font. So I started gravitating more towards like screenplays and comic books. Because they're written in different ways. Like I can read a screenplay like a motherfucker, but I can't, something about books are hard. Books is hard, yo. Books do be hard. The comedian that I saw last night, we were talking before we got on the show, but there was a comedian that had last night that was talking about, all the crazy, mothers of liberty or whatever, these crazy psychotic right-wing conservative groups that are like banning books and shit. Yeah, Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty. She had this like she had a sticker that she was selling like at her merch table that, and I might mess it up, but it was something like, don't worry about gay books until you figure out books or something like that. It was basically like, what? Don't worry that much about gay books until you just, figure out regular just books in general. Figure out regular books first.
which was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What next? What our next is, I'm going to go with another patron. This one's from Ron, and I go with this one because, not that I wasn't already thinking about this, but Ron like confirmed that I should talk about the ones that I picked. Ron brought up that he really loved the Resident Evil books from the 90s that were written by S.D. Perry. Okay. And I'm not familiar with these. As a Resident Evil fan, a lax Resident Evil fan, I'm not familiar with these.
Yeah, so these were books that were written in the late 90s, early 2000s that were based on the games. I think this is something that we all need to get back into as a society. Is I don't think we do novelizations of games and movies as much as we used to.
Oh, that was huge back. I mean, obviously in the 70s and 70s and 80s, that was a huge, huge thing.
Yeah. And so like S.D. Perry, like this is most of her career. She wrote 6 books for Resident Evil. 4 of them were based on games. So like she wrote The Umbrella Conspiracy, which is based on the original game, City of the Dead, which is based on 2. And then she has a couple original ones that use the same characters. So I remember Ron brought this up, and he says he loves all of them, but I remember specifically reading City of the Dead and Underworld. And Underworld was an original one that follows 2 and is meant to be kind of like a space in between 2 and 3.
Okay.
But yeah, she wrote novelizations from the original game up through Code Veronica and Zero. So yeah. But she also, I just going over her bibliography, she has some pretty good novelizations in there. She did the novelization of Time Cop. She did the novelization of the Jamie Lee Curtis movie Virus.
Okay.
She did a bunch of novels for Alien and Alien vs. Predator, like before there were movies. Like this is again in the 90s. So this is before there were the movies that came out. She was just doing it kind of in, almost in conjunction with all the Dark Horse comics that were getting put out at the same time.
Sure.
And then she also wrote a bunch of like Deep Space Nine books that I assume are just like, original episodes that were never made.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so Ron brought that up, which confirmed to me that I should absolutely talk about my favorite novelization series when I was growing up, which was the Doom books.
You've mentioned these before, which I did not realize existed. I also didn't realize they existed. The Resident Evil ones existed, but that was more in my wheelhouse. But yeah, I think you've mentioned the Doom books before.
Yeah, I think I've
probably, at least briefly.
Yeah, I think I've probably mentioned them in passing, but I just wanted to get into them pretty deeply, for this episode, just because they were some of my favorite books. And I don't know that people know they existed as much anymore. Like it's one of those things where like they got purged as the new games came out. Sort of. I was reading, on the Wikipedia that there actually are some Easter eggs in Doom Eternal that are references to these books. But yeah, there were 4 books. Again, this is back when Doom and Doom 2 first came out. So these were published in between 95 and like 96. Okay. So like they cranked out 4 books. These 2 writers, David Abhue and Brad Lineweaver.
Nice.
They cranked out 4 books based on Doom, and then they came out I believe before Doom 3. But yeah, the first 2 books are kind of retellings of Doom 1 and Doom 2. Yeah. And then they had 2 more books after that, Infernal Sky and Endgame, which are...
Oh, not Endgame.
Yeah,
Every
Endgame.
series has Endgame. Didn't we just talk about this on a recent episode? Every series has Endgame.
I don't think we talked about it, but I will co-sign that thought.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about this though. But yeah, it was an Endgame type deal. I just the thing that was great about these books, because they were based off Doom 1 and Doom 2. There was basically no lore other than fucking aliens, and you shoot them, and you're a guy who shoots them. And they added in they gave the Doom guy a name and a purpose. They gave him an awesome 90s action hero name, which is Flynn Taggart. Like, that fucking rules. That's a cool guy name, Flynn Taggart.
Yeah.
And then these were pretty interesting to me as a kid because they also they have a female character, Arlene, and Arlene isn't just like a damsel. I think this is a little bit of a reflection of like how Tomb Raider was also big in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And we were getting a lot more like strong female protagonists. So they have this character, Arlene, who is like also just a very strong Marine. And then this was also kind of my first introduction to Mormonism.
Okay. Just as a concept?
Just as a concept and everything. Because Mormonism plays like a big role in this book, in these books, for some reason.
Weird. I would not have guessed that.
Neither would have I. But there's a kind of a third character, Albert, and Albert is like Arlene's kind of eventual love interest. And then like it's a little bit of a role reversal because like Arlene is, she's like a tough, rugged Marine, and Albert is like, hey, don't hurt me. Like I don't do coffee and alcohol. Don't be so crass towards me. Don't try to honk my dick too much. It makes me upset.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. It lends a fun little dynamic.
Yeah. But then, also like there's because like the earth gets destroyed and everything, there's like a resistance. There's a Mormon resistance unit still based in Salt Lake City. And I guess they I can't remember it completely, but I believe they like hide inside the mountains to get away from the demons and everything. It's it's weird, but and I was looking, I don't think either of the writers were Mormon. So they just decided to write this like weird Mormon subplot into it. It's fucking great.
That's wild.
But that's what you do when you have like free reign. Cause like there was really nothing about Doom as a lore or anything. There weren't these extra characters. It was just you point shotgun at enemy. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
That makes me want to Google, and I'm gonna, whether there is novelizations of the Duke Nukem games.
I wouldn't be shocked if there is,
because Duke Nukem has even less story than the Doom games, I think. And also,
I think there's more. There might be definitely more. Yeah.
See, I just played. I wasn't a big Doom guy when I was a kid. I was more my run around shoot 'em up games were Duke Nukem, but the character of Duke Nukem seems less. There's less to go on because Duke Nukem was essentially Ash Williams if he was a fascist.
Hail to the king, baby.
Yeah.
So he's not a good guy. You don't want to root for Duke Nukem.
Yeah, like that's the difference is like the Doom guy has no character, so you can impart any character onto him.
Yeah.
Duke Nukem is very specifically the 90s, like not even
action hero.
Yeah. Not even fascist, but like super libertarian. Because remember,
sure.
Because if you remember, like the first level of Duke Nukem 3D is him shooting a bunch of cops who are pigs.
That's true. Yeah. He's less at the, but I guess when I thought of like his last name is Nukem, right? Yeah. So he's really into just like mass murder, like he that's his vibe, right? So
that's why
maybe a little less fascist, more just like not even libertarian, but just like nihilistic, but also super patriotic for some reason.
That's why I think he's a super libertarian, because like he for some reason wants the government of America and the concept of America to live, but everything else,
don't tell him what to do because he will shoot you.
Everything else comes secondary to Duke. So like, so I guess even if America got in Duke's way, that's the only thing is like America didn't get...
in his mind, he is America, right? In his mind, Duke Nukem is America. He is the embodiment of America. So yeah, that makes sense.
As long as Duke lives on, so does America.
Yeah. America will live on as me, Duke Nukem.
It's my way, or hell, it's my way.
We should probably consider doing an entire spin-off Duke Nukem podcast and just really like exploring the psychological angles of Duke Nukem as a character and just like really just dissecting him.
Well, we should wait on that then, as they just that I don't know if you've seen that, like the guy who did the Castlevania anime for Netflix and then did the Devil May Cry anime for Netflix, which I didn't see.
I did not see Devil May Cry. I watched all the Castlevania ones and loved the fuck out of them. Nocturnum, all of them I watched.
Well, this guy just bought the rights to Duke Nukem to do to do that. That's gonna be weird. Yeah. So.
If he goes super cartoony with it, like, oh, it's a cartoon, I get it. But if he goes really whack, if he goes like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure insanity with it, then I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not like into this dude. I thought the Castlevanias were fine, so I don't know.
Yeah, I thought they were good. I mean,
yeah. I didn't make it through Nocturne, but I thought
Nocturne, yeah.
I thought the first, 4 seasons of the regular Castlevania with Alucard and Belmont and the Magic Lady were great.
I'm just such a fan of Castlevania, and also it kind of took, it's not a masterpiece, but I really had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I just think it's a fun little expansion. Just to quickly wrap up with the Doom books, though. The one thing that they did do that was like very weird is they introduced the concept that the demons weren't demons from hell. They were aliens who disguised themselves as demons from hell to scare all the Christians on Earth. And then they also introduced like another race of aliens that are kind of good, but not actually, but also battled these demons who they made it like little convoluted. Yeah. The last 3 books are super the last 2 books are super convoluted because they just kind of went off and did their own fucking thing. But another thing I remember they did introduce that I thought was cool because it kind of predates Shaun of the Dead. And I think it predates like a lot of other movies that do a similar thing, but I can't think of another movie that does this. Is they have the characters at one point kind of rub rotten fruit and like food on them to mask them from the zombies.
Yeah.
So they can walk freely among the zombies because their smell is covered. And I can't think of a film that would have come out in the like mid 90s that.
I'm trying to think. I mean, The Walking Dead did that way long. Walking Dead did that 10 years later. Yeah, I feel like that's become a little bit of a trope now that I've seen a few times, but not as far back as the 90s.
Yeah, so I think
The Walking Dead, that with like just the gore, them just like rubbing, gore all over themselves and then walking among the zombies.
Yeah, which I think it was either gore and or like rotten lemons that they use in the Doom books to mask their smell from the zombies. So yep, just an interesting little thing that they may have originated.
I like that.
Oh, and then I wanted to bring up the one writer, Brad Lineweaver, because he also has a little bit of a film career. He worked primarily with Fred Olen Ray a lot.
Oh, okay.
And he is credited with like the original story on the 1995 film Jacko.
Is this a Michael Jackson thing?
It is not a Michael Jackson thing.
Who's Jack? Oh, Jacko. You mean the one with the pumpkin head guy?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. That movie's fucking wild and bad, but it has some of the coolest imagery of like the glowing eyed pumpkin guy, like in the shadows. Fucking rules.
Yeah. So, yeah, just a thing. Yeah, Brad Lineweaver came up with the original story, and I think like Fred Olen Ray and maybe somebody else rewrote the script, and then it stars Linnea Quigley. So there you go.
Yeah, classic.
Check it out. From the writer of the Doom books comes Jacko.
And the future writer of the Duke Nukem novelizations.
No, he's dead.
Okay, fuck. He's probably not going to do it then. I'll cross this one off my list because I already hinted at it, and I think about him very much in the same vein as Ray Bradbury in his influence, but also when he was most prolific, which was maybe a decade ish before, but they were also contemporaries that I think of as some of the most influential people in modern genre, sci-fi, horror, everything, which is Richard Matheson. So we talked about that. I talked about him already and his influence, but the book I wanted to bring up, despite the fact that he's right there with Ray Bradbury in terms of being prolific and incredibly influential in his short story writing. So many of his short stories got turned into. He was a writer he has tons of writing credits on The Twilight Zone. So a bunch of classic Twilight Zone episodes were based on his short stories. I mean, it's like probably the top 10 best, most memorable sci-fi. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank right now? Twilight Zone. I can't want to say sci-fi instead of Twilight. Twilight Zone episodes are like so many of those top 10 are based on Richard Matheson short stories. But I'm going to call out my favorite novel of his, which is I Am Legend, which is obviously has been adapted on film a bunch of times, not just the Will Smith I Am Legend, but also Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, and then The Omega Man with Charlton Heston,
which I think is I think that's my preferred version.
Yeah, I'm just such a Vincent Price fan, and like that, the Last Man on Earth is such a comfort movie for me, cozy horror for me. But it is, I mean, really defined post-apocalyptic horror sci-fi in the modern sense. Everybody, like all those tropes that have evolved into obviously those retellings of the story, but things like The Walking Dead, which we just mentioned, owe so much to Richard Matheson's view of a post-apocalyptic society and the people that are hanging on and trying to keep it together and all the things you do, like getting granular, mundane, day-to-day things, and then how it affects your broader environment, regardless if you think society is quote unquote over, right? The first person to like the modern influence on zombies, even like this was one of the primary influences for George Romero in Night of the Living Dead, which obviously really created the modern zombie genre. A lot of the modern tropes around vampires that we think of as just, bedrocks of the vampire subgenre, were really formalized in I Am Legend too. So, amazing story. Like a lot of kind of heart-wrenching points, a lot of action, a lot of just like the mundane realities of living in a post-apocalyptic world. I just absolutely love that story. And also I am a sucker for like mid-century stuff, as me gushing over Ray Bradbury already. I'm a sucker for that stuff too. So I Am Legend, Richard Matheson, one of the, that is probably one book that I read mostly in it, sat down and pretty much read in a day. Like that's just one that you can crank through. And yeah, definition of a page turner in my book.
Yeah. Matheson and Bradbury were always like quick reads for me.
Yeah.
Like I remember I probably got through Fahrenheit 451 in like 2 days.
Yeah. That's a really quick one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably his most famous book, but
right.
Love it.
Love it. Let's see. Let's go back to the patrons for a quick check-in with them. And I just bring this one up because you were talking about how Matheson, a lot of his stuff has been adapted. And so this comes from Shiggles, and she wanted to point out that her favorites were Clive Barker and the Books of Blood, as well as Cabal were her favorites. Yeah. And just if you think of Books of Blood, like there are however many adaptations, and we've done most of them on this fucking show, because we've done Rawhead Rex, we've done Candyman, we've done the Midnight Bee Train. So like I think we've done all of the film adaptations at some point.
There are, I mean, the first 2 Books of Blood, I have all of them, including Cabal, which is considered to be the 6th Books of Blood book. Right. The 5th and 6th, is it 4, 5, and 6 aren't called 1, 2, and 3 are just called Books of Blood, Volume 1, 2, and 3. And
right.
4, 5, and 6 have different names. Cabal is 6, and Cabal is also the main story. The title story in that collection is called Cabal, which is the story that Nightbreed is based on.
Sure. Yeah.
And which is fantastic.
We haven't done that on the show yet, but yeah.
Yeah. But there are the first 2 are incredible. The first 2 Books of Blood, like every story, there are some stories in there. There's one which I'm not going to remember the title of, but it's about these people like vacationing in some like remote area of like Central or Eastern Europe, and these 2 feuding towns that every 20 years or something build a giant mech out of organic human bodies. It's insane. It's insane. And like the detail that he writes it in, the balls of Clive Barker to sit down and say, I'm going to write this is wild. And he pulls it off. Yeah. It's so, I remember, obviously growing up reading a ton of short stories, Bradbury and Matheson and Stephen King. And the first time reading Clive Barker going like, this guy's he's fucking insane. Like he is out of his goddamn mind. And also just like the balls on him to set out and write a story based on the wild shit. And not all of it lands, especially once you get into like 3rd and 4th books. There's some stuff that you're like, you had an insane concept and you were trying to out Clive Barker, and it didn't work. There's a stark drop off after like the first 2. And then the 3rd one's not good. I think the 4th one's not there's good stories, but there's a stark drop off. And then I think coming back with 6, I really do like Cabal. It is he'll just try to make anything work as a concept.
Yeah. Lord of Illusions in those books as well, which we haven't covered, but yeah. Clive Barker also just has like a bunch of graphic novels out there, and some of them are based on Books of Blood, and some of them are just like original stuff, and like they're also just fucking insane. And it's because like it's one of the few mediums that would actually capture him.
Yeah,
like they're not gonna let him make a fucking 90-minute film of some of the things that he puts down, because it's too graphic and bizarre, and like would probably give some people PTSD, I bet. And like horny. They're so horny.
Yeah,
so like, horny.
Every single story that he has is so vile in its horniness.
Yeah.
I remember reading Clive Barker for the first time going like, good God, this man's fucking insane. His brain's broke.
Yeah. Like there's this one comic book. I can't remember the name of it. I was trying to look it up, but I can't remember it. But it's this graphic novel about like this guy who goes out to a desert and he unleashes basically a pleasure god. And it's a little similar to Hellraiser, but like the pleasure god just goes around like making people fuck with their skin off and shit like that. And like
there's like a whole, I would say 15% of his catalog is that.
Yeah. And
it's just like old, like, and just fuck demons.
Yeah, just fuck demons fuck demons is the way to put it.
I mean, Rawhead Rex is a fuck demon.
Yeah, Rawhead Rex is a fuck demon who pisses on people and shit like that. Yeah, so but yeah, the whole thing at the end is like they discover like this, angelic chromatic god is just like really like the little brother of like these other older gods, and they like are mad at him.
I know the story. Yeah.
Stop being a fucking jagoff. What are you doing?
Quit being a crazy fuck god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Books of Blood 1 through 3 on my list too. I love them. They're fucking so chaotic. Same thing with movies. I love big swings. I love stories that you have no fucking idea where they're going and they go in an insane direction. And Clive Barker is the king of that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my next one, I also just thought it paired well with, like, you know, as we're talking about kind of this progression of, like, you know, Matheson is like a king of short stories, and then Clive Barker becomes the king of short, horny stories.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the writer's few, like, kind of pure horror in a way. But did you ever read Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk?
Yeah. I just saw it when I was going through my books to try to figure out what it was. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here on my shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of my favorites.
Awesome book.
I think I've read the majority of Chuck Palahniuk's work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one obviously stands out as like a pure horror book. And it
also is like kind of a black, like it has laughs in it.
Yeah, they all do. Like, yeah, they all do. Like, you can't help that. Yeah. But I think the horror in this book comes by way of, like, con man hell is like is like what this book is, because it also has like a unique structure to it, because it's a book about like 17 people who have their own stories. You know, they have their own horror stories that happen to them, are brought together by this kind of con man to write the most fucked up book ever, is what he's looking to, you know, achieve. Like, he wants the most damaged people ever to write a book for him. Yeah. And so it's almost like it's like a real world road rules challenge of like sadists. Yeah. Like, yeah. Sadists and masochists and like the worst people, like just the worst people of all types. Yeah. So yeah. And like the book being from 2005 is very influenced by reality culture. And so it's a lot of like prescient thoughts about the way people behave now and how they like present themselves to the world, and the way they present themselves is like either a grift or a con or a way to hide something in their own past. And so but it's like they're doing the most despicable, like most of the stories are like the most despicable Scooby-Doos that you could ever think of. Like that Scooby-Doo that ends in like cannibalism or something. Yeah. Like one of my favorites is like the chef assassin who like he murders people, you know, he murders people who give him negative reviews online, but then he uses a very specific brand of knife and blackmails that company so they don't like so it never gets released that he's using their specific brand of knife to ruin their brand. There's a big and speaking of another Chuck, it almost has like early Chuck Klosterman type of vibes too, where it's like talking about not just reality show culture, but just like the commercialization of people's images, which is like so everyday thing right now. But back in the 90s, this is obviously pre-social media. And this was when, like, it's like if you took Books of Blood and combined it with like Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. Like that's what you kind of end up with a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very modern book and very modern horror that you get out of this. But there's some like butthole puckering grossness and I don't want to say body horror, but there's just like some horrific shit. I mean, it's close to body horror. Like, I think the thing everybody remembers this book from is actually the short story Guts. That's about the guy getting his like intestines sucked out by the pool drain thing. Yeah. Because he's always like, I think squatting over the pool drain. Yeah, because it's more of that. It's the elevation. Like, if Clive Barker's horny, then everybody in a Chuck Palahniuk book is horny degenerate. You know, like,
Yeah.
And I think I don't fully remember it, but I think the progression is like, it's about this guy and he starts by like jacking off, but that's not enough. And he tries sounding and that's not enough. And then like, you know, he winds up sitting on a pool drain at one point, and that's
like the return with the suction. Yeah.
And that's just about enough for him. And he starts going at it. And like, he's also kind of drowning at the same time, but then it sucks his guts out.
Which also makes him horny.
Yeah. That sucks his guts out into the pool drain. Asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's a pretty intense book, but it's also like kind of funny. I know it doesn't sound funny at all, but like it's got a bit of a I don't know, a sardonic humor to it, I'll say.
Yeah. Like there's always a snark and bite to pretty much like every piece of fiction that Palahniuk has written. There's another 2 books of his that I just mentioned briefly because they're not full horror, but like, I don't know, they kind of live in that space a little bit. Is Damned and Doomed is like this story about this girl who like wakes up in hell, and just it's more of a mystery about finding out how she arrived in hell and then what she does with her life after that. And like kind of revealing like all the ways in which her life was a disappointment, but her family is also a disappointment, and like how she was kind of led to the point that she just dies in this incredibly I don't want to give it away, but it's just like it's a sad, but also, you know, again, in the throes of a sexual act. Yeah, it's just like more of that. Ugh.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how people feel about Palahniuk nowadays. I think a general consensus was like, oh, he's just like kind of an edgelord, but like that's not the point. Like the point is like, yes, all of the characters are fucked up and depraved. Because like you scratch the surface of a lot of people and you'll find somebody with a depravity or degeneracy of some sort.
Sure.
And like that's what you're supposed to take away from all of the characters being fucked up and depraved. Like everybody has something wrong with them, so don't judge everybody.
Yeah. Listen, when I read Haunted, I was wearing my Slipknot mask.
Oh yeah.
But no, I that's the only thing I've read of his, and I really enjoyed it. So I've had him on my to read more list for a while, but
it's not, I don't know. I don't think it's a favorite of a lot of people's, but the book Rant, I think you might enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you might enjoy Rant. It's
all right.
It's bizarre and it's written in a unusual style. So,
okay. I'll get this one out of the way because I already mentioned him. I'm going to talk about Peter Straub and specifically the story. Like I said, I'm currently reading his other book with Black House with Stephen King. I really like The Talisman, which is, again, more dark fantasy. But Ghost Story by Peter Straub is maybe... I was kind of... Because I love haunted house stories. I love Hell House by Matheson. I love The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Obviously, classic. Felt like that was... too easy of a pick, so I went with my favorite haunted house, probably my other favorite haunted house book, which is Ghost Story by Peter Straub, which I do think is one of those. I mean, it's a modern classic. It's 1979, but this is the one that put him on the map, and it's one of those books that I do think suffers amongst like modern readers a little bit by having just obviously the most generic name ever. But this is super like highly influential to Stephen King too. When you see like read post, like, more modern, really the majority of Stephen King's catalog, anything with a haunting, like you get the vibe that he was heavily influenced by Peter Straub. Obviously worked with him for decades until I think they were working together right up until he passed, which was not long ago. I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago. But this book has the most eerie, like a a scare in a book is obviously different than a scare in a movie.
Right.
There's not a jump scare, but like the jump scare equivalent in a book is like when you have to read it a second time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You read something and you're like, wait, what? And then you have to read it again. You're like, oh my God, that thing I read that I thought maybe just happened. I'm now confirming that it did just happen. And that's creepy as fuck. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much of that in Ghost Story. Great character building. It's about like this older guys. He's a group of older gentlemen, really, who like have this kind of, I'll say for lack of a better term, like psychic or supernatural connection to this town in upstate New York. And this ghost that's like preying on this town. And specifically this small group of people, these small group of like older guys. So not unlike a Stephen King book where a lot of times the protagonist or the protagonists and their friends are kids and they have that element of helplessness because they're kids and nobody's going to believe them because they're kids and that sort of thing. They are like older guys who are also dealing with becoming an advanced age and mortality knocking on the doorstep and various people in their social circles like losing their faculties and things like that. And they're worried about that internally, but also they're worried about losing their credibility and their reputations and their relationships that mean so much to them in their later parts in their life if they face the haunting that they're dealing with in the wrong way, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's really great. There's so many like very dream-like sequence. There's tons of like urgency. Like there are certain scenes where they're in an environment where they're being, they're dealing with this entity and it's just like really great tension building. I don't know, just maybe my favorite haunted house story on par with Haunting at Hill House. So Ghost Story, Peter Straub.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, that was one of Dan's suggestions as well as the Haunting on Hill House. So
good.
Yeah, you're definitely in line there. I also wanted to bring up Dan's other more interesting pick that he had because it's not exactly fiction. It is the book The Wager, which was written by the same guy who wrote Killers of the Flower Moon, David Gran. And it apparently I haven't read this book, but from Dan's perspective, it was a book about a shipwreck in 1740, and then it's just about like the survivors of that wreck like going mad and turning to cannibalism.
Nice.
And so apparently the book is also been optioned by Scorsese and DiCaprio. After they did Killers of the Flower Moon, they're now looking to make that into a movie. So
nice.
I'm sure that probably sounds like it would wind up being closer to a horror movie, but I don't know. That's a weird choice for Scorsese. Like, cause I think he's only really done Shutter Island as a more pure horror movie. And I don't know. That one
more of a psychological twisty type of thing.
And it didn't hit for me either.
Did we do that on the show?
No.
I feel like no. I liked it. Okay. Yeah, we won't need to get into Shutter Island too much, but it was a little bit more of a mystery than it was like pure horror. But what was the one that I think we talked about a little bit, which had a very Lovecraftian element to it, and it was that they're doing another season of it, and it's the shipwreck, The Terror. I loved that series, and they're adding another one to it. It gives I don't know if it's in a Arctic environment where they're dealing with the elements in that way, but I love a damn shipwreck, and then spooky shit happens.
Yeah, no, The Wager is a shipwreck in South America, I believe. So it's more of like trapped in the jungle type shit.
Gotcha. Hey, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
I don't need to know.
No. But yeah, the terror is far more like even it is based off a real story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they added a lot of kind of supernatural and cosmic horror elements to that.
Yeah.
That
I remember us talking about what the story was when we talked a little bit about the series, or it came up in some capacity, but I don't remember what the story was.
Yeah. The first season's amazing. I didn't see the second season, and then I don't know what the third season has for us, but
the second season was good, but it was not as good as the first season, but
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Jump to another patron from this, because it kind of leads into, well, no, you know what? Let me do one of my picks real quick, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But I mean, what best of horror reading list would be without House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski?
What a fucking weird book, and a polarizing book.
Yeah.
That one is.
So I just to quickly break it down for people, I was just kind of looking at the Wikipedia page, reminding myself. But if you go to follow the blue highlighted term, ergodic literature, which is the explanation for how a lot of the pages in House of Leaves are not written typically, and they require you to like spin the book around and read all the footnotes,
like physically move upside down, sideways, like they're points where it looks like it bled through to the other page on the next page, but it's backwards, like, and
it looks like the scrawlings of a maniac sometimes. But they have the best synopsis of the book in like their list of ergodic literature. So they list off a bunch of other books that are like this, but their description of it is very succinct, and I love it. A novel with a very unusual layout, presented as a story about a manuscript, about a movie, about a house that is larger on the inside than the outside. That is so succinct.
That is really concise
for the most insane book you can read. And I just wanted to bring it up because it is a really good book, and no, I've never finished it. And in that way, it becomes a meta haunting, because I know where that book is and it stares at me, and I know that I haven't finished it. And so it haunts me that I've never finished it.
It's weird because I did finish it last year.
Okay.
I read it. I started reading it probably 3 times.
Same.
Never finished it. And last year I actually did finish it. It is not fun to read, but it absolutely sticks with you. And I would say of this book, which it's a big, dense book, there are huge swaths of it that you can just skim. Like there are huge sections of it that are just notations that are just, there's no narrative. It's just notations. It's just, there'll be 2 pages that's just a list of places. Just a list, Then there's some pages that have 1 word on it. Then there's some pages that have 4 words on it, and then 4 words further down. Like, so it looks like a big, intimidating book, but there is a lot that you can move through. But then there's a lot that's really dense too. And the parts that are dense are god awful boring, but you feel like you have to read it or you're going to miss something. So it's like reading it is like sorting, through a haystack for needles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then the when you do find a little interesting pocket that moves the narrative forward, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
The part that I really loved was everything about the house, the house that essentially goes on forever, and they go on these like wild, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like excursions deep into the bowels of the house. And then it's so unpredictable, the things that happen within this like giant lost liminal environment. But it's not fun to read at all. And it takes fucking forever.
Like it's sort of fun to read, but it's not fun to read. But like you're saying, like I too have started it 2, maybe 3 times, and I'm hoping to nail it on this 4th or 5th time, but it's one of those books, like if you because you're essentially reading 3 books and a guy's notes on something else at the same time. You're just reading all of it at the same time.
Sometimes you're reading about a guy who used to live there that died, that was writing about a movie that may or may not have been staged. And then sometimes you're reading about his love life, which you kind of don't give a fuck about. So it's like, and then you read and you're on one page, you might read different sections that were written by as many as 4 or 5 people.
Right. Yeah.
And then notations by somebody else. Like it's extraordinarily convoluted, intentionally so. And I think the most impressive thing about it is the sheer amount of dedication that a composition like that requires.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like, I'm sure you can go deeper to it. And I'm sure this is like a really good Reddit book. If you want to jump on to ARG theory and shit like that. So yeah, like you may get more out of it by investigating it, is what you're supposed to essentially, like the book curses you to become a new investigator. It's the other meta way it haunts you, is like either you're haunted by never finishing it or you're haunted by being an investigator into it. One of those two ways.
It's funny. I just read a book not that long ago called Night Film that kind of felt a little bit like a book about people who really like House of Leaves.
Oh, that's funny.
But if you want to, it is a fun thing to go read on Reddit about. It's a fun thing to go down the YouTube rabbit hole about. But then you need to be prepared that you will come across some of the most obnoxious people who really love to talk about how much they love this book.
Yeah.
It is like the oh boy, I'm coming up. I'm struggling to come up with a perfect example of a band. I was originally going to say it's the Radiohead of books, in that, like, I get that it's good.
It's the Tool of books.
But like, I don't care to put that much mental effort into liking it.
It like it's the prog rock of books. I thought
sure.
And hey, I love prog rock. I love fucking Rush and Dream Theater. Don't come for me. Fuck off. I love it. So leave me alone. But I thought you were going to say it's the Infinite Jest of horror books.
That too. Sure. Yeah, that makes more sense. It's somebody, a college or post-grad person who is really trying to make their life interesting would get really into this book.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you can't not bring it up. It is. Like,
no, there's no book like it.
Yeah. There's no book like it, and everybody should attempt it. But like, I don't fault anybody who puts it down, because I myself have not finished it yet. So yeah. I think it would be really funny if they made a film adaptation of this movie, or of this book, and it was just the movie that's in the book. Like, none of the other shit. It's just the movie that's in the book, and it's not that interesting. Like, you get the cool imagery of, like, that giant door that's 1,000 feet tall or whatever. And it's like, oh, that's so crazy. But like, all the other stuff is just cut off.
Just CTV of like the kids sitting on the couch and shit.
Yeah. It's just like another.
The rest of it's just Skinamarink.
Yeah, that's
exactly what I was going to say. The rest of it's just Skinamarink. Yeah. All right. The polar opposite, perhaps, of that book. I'm going to mention a novella, which polar opposite in the sense that it is very short
and easy to read.
And easy to read. I don't know how long it is. It's not a particularly long story. I want to say it's, I don't know, 50 pages ish or something like that. So it's in that novella, 50 to 70. I don't know. It depends how it's laid out. It actually might be a little shorter than that, because I might be getting two of his novellas mixed up. Anyway, someone who I think is one of the grandfathers of weird fiction and also of folk horror, really, Algernon Blackwood, The Willows. I love The Willows. This is one of my favorite like read before bed stories. This is from, I wrote down what year it was. This early 1900s. 1907, but it's much more colorful and strange and not as I like M.R. James, but M.R. James short stories and ghost stories and stuff almost feels so rigidly painfully British that you're like, it can't even be, it's too matter of fact to be scary, you know?
Right.
Algernon Blackwood gets weirder, and it actually it holds up a lot better than M.R. James, I think, in that way. But essentially it's about these two guys who go on this like long distance canoe trip, who know each other fairly well, but they're just kind of like, you know, guys going on an adventure. They're going on a canoe trip up the Danube, and they're going far into, you know, Eastern Europe, into like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, I guess, following the Danube, and just kind of like how, you know, are young and fearless and all this stuff. And then they just end up in their naivete and their invincible mentality end up getting them into some weird, mystic, cosmic shit that they are old, ancient shit that they don't understand and are kind of tortured by it. And just the atmosphere of this. And you know how like books that, at least for me, books that stick with you are the ones that that paint the picture so perfectly that like there's a set in your head of that book. And this is a relatively short story, and it all takes place on like one little tiny sliver of land, but out in the middle of the Danube River. Mm-hmm. And I can picture it perfectly in my mind, right? Like, although I've never been to that place, like I have a perfect picture of what that is in my mind. And these entities, I won't even speculate on what they are because you should just read it. It's quick. And you can probably find it for free anywhere. And the weird interactions between the two travelers, and it just becomes really unnerving, and it just snowballs into one of the strangest and creepiest stories that of all time, in my opinion. So anything from Algernon Blackwood holds up really, really well, in my opinion. But The Willows is kind of his, I don't know, probably his best known story.
Right on.
And certainly his most influential one.
Sure. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. If it's a short read, I'll be able to get through it with my dumb brain.
Yeah, it's quite short.
With my dumb brain. All right. This is going to bring us to our last patron, which also kind of leads into my last suggestion as well. But from James out of New York City, he was saying, yeah, he doesn't get around to reading as much, but one of the last things he did read was Shadows on the Grave by Richard Corbin. And what this is it's a graphic novel collection of stories, very much in the realm of like doing Tales from the Crypt, or Tales of the Weird from back in the day, like those kind of old pulpy comics. Sure. That just had like a bunch of short stories in them. But yeah, this was published in 2019 and is a follow-up to Corbin's previous book, a collection of stories, which is Spirits of the Dead.
Okay, I like that.
So yeah, I wanted to bring that up because and this is published by Dark Horse, which I already mentioned earlier in the episode about doing the Alien vs. Predator comics, which leads me into my current pick, which is the only thing I'm reading right now because I can't read and I am stupid. But I've been reading Spider-Man vs. Predator.
Spider-Man vs. Predator. Hell yeah.
Absolutely. This shit rules.
Yeah.
It was very quiet, but this summer Marvel has been putting out Spider-Man vs. Predator and Aliens vs. Avengers. And like they're far more violent, especially the Spider-Man vs. Predator one. The Spider-Man vs. Predator comic is one of the most violent comics I've read in a long time. I am shocked by it because
I think of Predator as being like hyper violent, but certainly not Spider-Man.
No. Yeah, you think Spider-Man's pretty friendly. He's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You never think you're going to see a fucking like skinned body in it, which there's like a lot of.
Not typical Spider-Man fare.
No, which it happens in the 3 issues I've seen already. There's a skin body in every issue, and it's like on full.
Oh, wow, all right.
And like, it's not just one. There's a bunch. There's like, so the story is essentially that there is a predator that has like gone rogue. Like it got trapped on Earth probably, and has lost its mind, and now it just hunts to hunt. Like it doesn't have like the honor of hunting, just willing warriors or anything like that. It hunts just people when it's opportune. So like it's killing women, it's killing children. So
this is Predator as a serial killer.
Yeah, it's Predator as a serial killer. So there's like one panel in which there's like one page that just like kind of details this behavior, and it shows like it's like killed a guy outside of one of the tunnels in New York City and hung his body up in Central Park. There's a fucking tiger, like it snuck into the tiger enclosure at the Brooklyn Zoo and skinned a tiger. And like there's this panel of like children screaming and freaking out at a skeletonized tiger. And then like there's even implication that he kills kids, like because they just have one panel of a slide in a park and it's like covered in blood, and it's like Jesus. But so you have the Predator, you have Spider-Man trying to hunt down the Predator, then you have Kraven the Hunter, because obviously this is fantastic big game for him. Yeah,
he's there. I mean, he heard it's something going wild in the city.
Yeah, exactly. So Kraven the Hunter's there, and then like a gang of 3 more Predators show up to put down the one who kills without honor. So yeah. It's pretty wild. It's a great book. I love it. It's exactly like, it brings me back to the 90s when Predator was fighting Batman and Superman and they fought the aliens together. It fucking rules.
It does sound pretty fucking awesome. I'm not going to lie. Predator, I probably, if I spent more time getting into all the Predator peripheral media that's out there, I would probably fucking dig it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like because I grew up on the Predator verse and basically all of Dark Horse comics, that like it was Predator and Predator and Alien and Terminator, and like they would just have them fight Spawn and Batman and Superman. Like they would just, I don't know, trick DC, I guess. Or like, hey, can our guys fight your guys? It's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Play with our action figures. It's cool.
Well, at that point, like, who is DC to say no?
Yeah.
When like hottest ticket in the game in the 90s comes and says, hey, we want to fight your guys. They're like, hell yeah, take our guys.
Yeah.
Kill him, rip his head off. We don't give a shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, those were a lot of fun. But this, like, now that the Alien and Predator properties are owned by Marvel, they're not put out by Dark Horse anymore. They're just doing straight Marvel. But yeah, they're, comics are wild still. I believe they just had like Godzilla versus Superman last year or something. So
all right,
yeah,
I could get down with that.
There's
never
wild
been a
shit
Superman
out there.
guy, but he's fighting Godzilla. Godzilla's like kind of has similar powers as Superman.
Yeah. Godzilla gets the better of him for a couple issues, so
yeah. I'll throw one more out there because it's super fucking weird, and I just read it not that long ago, and it's very top of mind for me. And this was kind of my alternate one since which one of? Oh, I thought there was one that somebody else talked about, but maybe not. A book called The Cipher by Kathe Koja. This is one of the stranger books I've read in a long time, and I really, really loved it. I also am a fan of anything that is kind of like 90s slacker culture type of vibes, right? And that's where like these kind of characters live. They're like somewhere between like cute 90s slacker culture, record store type of culture, and like degenerate living in abandoned building Fight Club type of culture. It's like somewhere in between there, right? So if you imagine the group, that intertwine, but they're artsy fartsy, live in kind of an environment where like art culture is very hip and important.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But this in particular degenerate finds a hole in a storage room in his apartment building that they call the fun hole.
Uh-huh.
And when you introduce things and people and various items into and around the fun hole, insane cosmic horror things happen that are unexplainable. And then a kind of hierarchy of strangeness forms in this social kind of clique around the phenomena that happen in and around the fun hole. It's just fucking weird. It's just a real fucking weird, really like just nihilistic, I would say, book as well, but really, really entertaining too.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild. And it's not a long read either. So it's not like, one of these crazy 900-page Stephen King books that we're talking about or something. So
yeah,
the Cipher by Kathe Koja is absolutely worth a read. It's fucking bizarre.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It was published in 1991, so that's very Gen X of the time. Where
it is very Gen X. Yeah,
where like it's proto hipster, but they're still like attaching to that disaffected youth, almost bohemian lifestyle, and then they form a subculture around this thing that's very special to them and nobody else knows about. Yeah, that sounds very of the time, but I could enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super fun. Super fun. All right, that was a lot of fun. I love getting suggestions from folks, and I've got some stuff to add to my to read list. So don't forget, guys, get out there. We got some movies for you to watch ahead of our Showdown episode for next week. Watch Jurassic Park. I'm sure you have already. Watch it again. Then immediately after that, watch 2006 Black Sheep. Then immediately after that, watch Dracula's Dog from 1977, a.k.a. Zoltan, Dog of Dracula. So you might find it as that as well. Go find those, watch them. We're going to talk about them next week. It is not starring Eric Roberts, Dan, although I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Eric Roberts was involved. And the spirit of Eric Roberts will certainly be with you while watching.
He's always with you, Dan. Always watching.
His 80-yard lines, drunken 80-yard lines, are always bouncing around your skull. All right. Anything else, Steve, before we wrap up this here Minisode?
Nope. Black Sheep's on Tubi and Dracula's Dog's on Canopy and Jurassic Park's fucking on your DVD shelf. So
yeah. Or VHS stuff. And I think Dracula's Dog might be just free on YouTube as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you could sure. Yeah, it's a 1977 fucking Dracula Dog movie. I'm sure it's ripped somewhere.
There are some fun things to talk about with that movie, so I'm excited for it. All right. Well, join us next week, like I said, for our Showdown episode. Go watch the movies this week. Enjoy your 4th of July. Don't blow your fingers off with fireworks, or do, if that's what you're into. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Steve vs. Predator vs. Alien vs. Judge Dredd.
And I'm Dracula's Dog. Woof woof.
Oh, bye.
Bye.